So tonight we are talking about, we're not going to talk much about llamas, though we do have a llama wrangler training for those who might be interested in that very niche part of the work that we do. But we'll talk about an overview of Wildlands University, which is our series of volunteer trainings. We're going to talk about some of those available leader roles, as well as like giving context of leader roles that after you like get connected in with WRV, you might grow into beyond something like a crew leader or tool manager. Um, we'll also touch on skilled volunteer roles. So I know Glenn was saying something about Sawyer's earlier and first aid. Those are what are called some of our skilled roles. I'll explain the difference when we get to those, but essentially you're not leading groups of people, but you do have some additional training, is kind of how we distinguish leader versus skilled volunteer positions. And then, yeah, we'll talk about other plannings for trainings this year. So that's real quick overview. Wildlands University, like I said, is our we use a lot of lingo that is akin to a university and a class of 2024. It's just a way for us to put all of our trainings under one umbrella. So all of our trainings that we're planning to do in March through May, and actually some into June as well, are now up on our website for signups. So I know many of you have already signed up for one of those. Just an overview of what is involved with becoming a leader for our projects is we will have, I'll do one thing at a time. Next month, we have an intro to diversity, equity, and inclusion training that we ask all new leaders to do, as well as anyone in our community who's interested in learning about how that plays into our projects. Like I said, everything from we have projects that are taking place in more than one language. There are a lot of things that we want to make sure we're creating a welcoming and inclusive environment on our projects for people, whether it's their first project or they've done 100 of them with us. So with that training that is going to be streaming online with our facilitator, Parker, from Eco Inclusive, and also planning myself and my colleague Jeffrey to facilitate an in-person group at the Longmont office, because we know that for some people, which I completely understand, the online format can feel a little disconnected. And so we wanted to have a chance for people when we have breakout discussions to have those in person and to spend time with us and ask questions. So there's just one sign up for that, but we'll reach out to anyone who's signed up just to get an idea of who might be coming in person. So that's the first part of training for the Wildlands University. Then Loveland Training Weekend is going to be April 6th and 7th. During that weekend, we'll be having training for crew leaders in trails and ecological restoration, people for our cook team and tool managers. All of those will be taking place simultaneously over that one weekend in Loveland, which we are doing a number of projects with Loveland. And so part of that was we wanted to host our training with them and start utilizing their facility to be connected in to what the city of Loveland is doing for restoration. Other trainings in May, we are going to do one for project photographers. So that is going to coincide with one of our projects. We previously did this in March, and really we got enough pictures of brown grass. So we wanted to wait until there was some greenery out there to be involved in the photos that we're taking for training. And then we also have our crew leader in native seeds training, which is going to be an all-day training with Anne Marie and some of our volunteer instructors in June. And that one is taking place later because There are not seeds that are ready to be collected in April. So those are kind of the main trainings that we have that'll be coming up over these next few months. Like I said, all of those signups are open on our website now. So I will send follow-up with info about how to sign up if you haven't yet done that. Any questions before I move on? Because I just started going.
I have a question.
Yeah, Ashley.
I was wondering, can you do the crew leader and also do the training for a photographer?
Okay, sorry, it broke up for a second, but something about the photographer?
Yes. Can you do like more than one training? Like if I want to do the training for the crew leader, like the Wildlands University, and then what if I also want to do training for a photographer? Is that possible?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and I'll talk about you could absolutely like train in you could train to be a crew leader in ecological restoration if there are spaces for like the native seeds one, you could do that one as well, though some of that would be repeating from the April weekend. But yeah, you can additionally do the project photographer. We wanted to make that accessible. So if people wanted to be a crew leader, but we're also interested in that. And yeah, we're happy to have people involved in that. We've found that usually when people were in the past doing like 2 or 3 trainings, they were only able to really follow through with one in their first season of that. And so, yeah, we tried to streamline it a little bit for this year, but happy to have someone taking photos and leading crews on other projects. That'd be great.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Hey, Adam, I have a question. This is
Yeah.
Diane.
Hey, Dan.
How are
Hi.
you? Hey,
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing well. What's the update on the monitoring tasks that I've been involved in the past, just checking out projects and things? Is that still going on or?
That is a great question, and I can definitely follow up with you after this because I wasn't planning to delve into that much tonight.
Okay.
But one of our staff members, Taryn, who was more involved, is moved on to another organization. So I will have to loop back with Morgan to find out. But there is intention to still have our monitoring and science committee
Okay.
engaged. Yeah.
And Hunter, we have another question from you. Go ahead.
I'm not sure if this is a good question to ask, but I'm curious if you guys have ever thought about offering some sort of like Spanish language training, because I know I've been to a couple events where the crew lead speaks fluent Spanish, which is awesome. But yeah, and I can speak Spanish, but I would like to learn more, obviously. But I was wondering if that's like something you guys have ever thought of or implemented in the past.
Yeah, we actually have, I didn't even, that was my bad. I think I probably have it on a later slide, but we do have specifically a crew leader training in ecological restoration that's being done entirely in Spanish on April 13th and 14th. So on our website, it's listed in Spanish, so Líder de Equipo de Restauración. But that is, if you are someone who like is already fluent in Spanish, but maybe just don't know some of like the technical terms that we would be using on a given project, or around the different tools, that would be a great option. We had some people who have done our training in English entirely, but since they were fluent in Spanish, they then would start mentoring with Spanish speaking leaders on other projects. So it is an option both to do the training entirely in Spanish, April 13th, 14th, or to do it in English and then mentor on projects that have either Spanish or bilingual setup. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. Nate, I see your hand up.
So if I do the training in trails for crew lead, am I able to be a crew lead in restoration as well, or do I have to wait a year?
You are one step ahead of me. I'm going to cover that when we get to the crew leader part, but that is a great question that I know is probably on other people's minds as well. Short answer is you can train in one, but we'll have opportunities for cross training once you're trained up in one of them.
Okay.
Cool. Okay. Anything from the chat that I missed, Anne Marie, or that was just you putting things
Oh,
in there? Great.
Yeah, I'm just trying to put little notes for folks that are asking.
Yep, much appreciated.
Hey,
Cool.
hey, Adam, if I can chime in there as an instructor and
Yeah,
Nathan's comment. Nathan, you know, that part of the training is going to be common, the soft skills we call them, and I'm sure Adam will go into this, common for both restoration and trails. And we consider then the trails focus or the restoration focus, the technical side or the hard skills side. So once we all get together and we go through the soft skills training, you know, the technical aspect is something you'll acquire forever and ever.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. Thanks, Mick. Okay, so with our volunteer leader trainings, I'll cover this. We have some nominal fees that help us with just getting materials. We're going to provide lunch for people on April 6th and 7th in that weekend in Loveland. And so since we don't really have much of a source of income of our trainings, this helps us to offset some of that. So the regular fee that we have, and this is all up on our website as well, was $114 for the weekend. There's also a discounted thing. So if you are an existing WRV member or donor, or you did at least a couple projects with us last year, you can sign up for that discounted fee. Part of this is just that we don't want our trainings full of people who are just trying to get really cheap professional development and then never do anything with us. So that is why there are the two different things on there. The Seeds crew leader, which I said is like a one-day training in June, that is a $74 instead of the $114, since we will only be providing one full day. The photographer training, which was asked about before, there is no fee to participate in that. We've realized that the marketing benefits of us having good photos from our projects are worth more than anything we could ask people to pay to help us offset the cost of running that. So also, with a note with all this is that we do have scholarships available because we don't want costs to deter anyone. So like I said, these fees are helping us to offset some of the staff time and materials costs of putting together and running these trainings, but we've often have people who are in school or in between jobs and wanting to just do this. We don't want any of these fees to be deterring anybody. So all you'd have to do for that is reach out to myself or Anne Marie and just ask us pretty much. It's pretty straightforward. Okay. The general overarching slide that shows all sorts of stuff here. We're going to go into each of these individual roles in a moment. So I think it's going to answer some of the questions we've gotten already, but we have a lot of different volunteer leader and skilled volunteer roles on our projects. So these 8 logos are showing kind of what a full project team could consist of. Every project that we do that has more than 7 volunteers on it, we have volunteer crew leaders. I'll talk more about what that involves, but when we have day projects, we could also have a tool manager, a photographer, a first aid person. The cook team and project leader and technical advisor tend to be more common on our overnight projects. And the Sawyer ones, like I said, is a skilled thing. So if we have people using either crosscuts or chainsaws, we have specific slots for those on projects. So that's the quick overview of all of those. Like I said, big project could have all 8 of them working together with our volunteer crew members. So I'm going to give kind of overview. Like Mick had said, crew leaders, whether you're in restoration, trails, or seeds, there's a lot that is in common with this position. And so in short, regardless of the type of project, you're leading a small group of volunteers and helping your crew complete the project activities in a safe, accurate, and fun manner. So you're kind of that point person for a small group of people who are signing up on the project who might have done stuff before, or it might be the first project they've ever done. So along with that, like our goal for crew leaders is that we're cultivating an inclusive and empowered team for the duration of the project. So whether a person is comfortable doing a particular task or not, we are involving everybody. And because there is absolutely something that every single person can do. You don't have to be able to lift a 100-pound boulder over your head in order to serve really important benefits on these projects. So yeah, you are kind of their point person. It is helpful if you know some about project area already, but it's not required. Like we had said, there is ongoing technical guidance for every project that we have. So that's provided before and during to all of our crew leaders. What you are committing to if you're interested in being a crew leader is during the project, like you are serving as this leader for other volunteers, and then we do a crew leader orientation prior to a project. Usually we'll do something online, which I will say the internet typically works better than it is right now at my house, but I'm not going to go restart it right now. So we'll do either a crew leader orientation online, or we'll meet early before a project. And that is a way for us to, get you up to speed on what our agency partners' goals are and how to do the different technical skills. And we'll usually meet up before crew members arrive to make sure like our radios work and that we answer any questions y'all might have. And then at the end of the day, we usually try to stick around and just like debrief while it's still fresh in our minds so that we aren't setting another meeting up. But that is in general, crew leaders are there a bit longer on projects, but get to really see how things are put together and how these projects and all of these restoration techniques are being applied. So as I mentioned earlier, because there was a question about cross-training for more than one of these specialties, what we would say is for restoration, trails, or seeds, we ask people to pick like either restoration or trails for the training, and would advise people to choose whichever specialty they are less familiar with. So for example, if you've done some trail building projects with us, but you've never done any sort of ecological restoration, it would make more sense for you to do the restoration training because you're going to see more new content during that field day as we're teaching technical skills. If you're like, yeah, this is all new to me, then I think the restoration one is like very broadly applicable to a lot of our project areas. And if you train in one or the other, you could then mentor with, let's say you did the trails training. You mentor with trails and crew leaders. You have reached the point of feeling like you're comfortable leading on your own. At that point, you could then hop onto some of like our ecological restoration projects and also work with an experienced crew leader as your mentor until you feel comfortable with the technical components of that area. So we want to make sure everyone is supported in what they're doing, and also want to make sure that we're not asking someone to do the same training twice. is we value your time and really appreciate you all coming out and helping out with all of this. Any
Adam,
yeah.
Adam, can I interject one thing? So Mick made a good suggestion to me in the chat that if you haven't done a WRV project and you still want to train as a crew leader, one of our early season projects, which will kind of show you a bit about, what a big project can look like. We're doing a project on April 20th in Fort Collins, and it's a tree planting. And it'll be for Earth Day, and it's one of our earliest season kind of large projects. So if you are taking training and you are free at that time, that's a good one to do. And then we're doing a staging day the day before on Friday the 19th. So those are our two earliest season projects for you to see a project if you're new to the WRV community.
Yeah. And I would say if you've not been on a project, or the only projects you've been on are like the seed cleanings in the office, the outdoor projects are quite different. And so, yeah, it is absolutely worth just being on one as a crew member before you're trying to learn like what you're doing as a crew leader. Because I think being in a project really gives you the feel for how the day goes. Before you're trying to figure out how do I lead a group of people. Any other questions related to crew leaders? Because I know that is one of the larger groups of that we have training.
What do you do if all the slots fill up? There's only one left for restoration.
Sign up. Sign up on the wait list and just reply to an email and say, hey, I really want to come, because some folks that have signed up won't be coming. And then I'm going to add extra slots as we get more instructors. So we'll be pulling people off the wait list. And enthusiasm matters. We always say that. If you join a wait list and then email us, you'll usually get pulled off.
Yes, but yeah, that is a good point that many of the ecological restoration slots are filled already. And I think the trails one is half filled as well. There's still a number of spots for seeds, and we just wanted to start with those numbers. And then if we have more interest, we just need to make sure we have more instructors to accommodate larger group sizes. But we've got a pretty good sized space to work with in Loveland.
I have a question for Am. The Earth Day Aspen planning, I'll be heavily involved with. Do you think there's an opportunity here for any really brave souls who might be crew leader for a day?
Maybe we may have some opportunities for trainees, but it's going to be like about 100-person project. So I think it'll depend. I haven't gotten there yet. That's a great question. Unknown.
Yeah. Sounds great. I can help accommodate that if you make that choice.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks. All right. We'll keep plugging through here. So tool manager is another one of our leader roles that would work with our project team and our staff member to determine what the tool needs are. And when we have an overnight, we'll have a kitchen as well. So tool managers really are integral to the beginning and the end of a project, as well as supporting our volunteer teams during the project. So tool managers will typically be loading and transporting tools so they can get signed off to drive our WRV truck. And if they're not comfortable doing that, we have staff on every project, but having the help getting everything together before a project and unloading at the end of it is such a huge difference when we're doing like a 30-person overnight project. Having a second or third pair of hands to get things together and unpack at the end is so helpful. And I can't emphasize that enough. Tool managers have made my life a world easier when we have these big projects. So yeah, being familiar with how you use tools and how to maintain them is helpful, but it's not required. We can offer training and help to get people up to speed with that. So during the project, for the most part, tool managers are on call on the radio. So if a crew needs different tools, if they have one that broke and they need something else over there, if they're like, what is this giant metal bar that we have? The tool manager is there to help with safety, tool use, and also just making sure that people have what they need so that they can do the restoration efforts. Okay, any questions regarding tool manager? So we do have those, like I said, mostly overnight projects, but we do have some single day projects where that comes into play as well. Cook team is only on our overnight projects now. So in the past, we had cook team on day projects, and yeah, just had a hard time with a lot of those logistics and properly supporting cook team on those day projects. And so at now we only have cook teams on our overnights. So those will be either like two, some projects could be like 3 days long. But with these, we provide breakfast and dinner for all of the volunteers on them. So the cook team would help with loading along with the tool manager, and then arriving to camp usually like the night before the project would start to help with, oh, I just had a heavy finger there for a second. So yeah, they would help set up the kitchen so that on that first morning we can provide breakfast and they're not trying to like, you know, get stuff out of the truck while making coffee and scrambling eggs or whatever it might be. So yeah, they would help with that. They will cook breakfast and dinner on project days. A lot of the meal prep is done during what we call our Cooks in the Kitchen events. So those are done once a month, usually for like 3 or 4 days, where at our kitchen at our Long Run office, we'll do a bunch of chopping and pre-packaging foods so that cooks on our projects don't have to sort all of that out in addition to cooking food. So I will say you can help with the Cooks in the Kitchen events without training to be on the cook team. This is specifically to go on those overnight projects and really serve as, you know, often one of the most popular people on those overnight projects, because you're helping to provide food to hungry people first thing in the morning and then right after they've been working outside for a day. So cook team, like I said, will pack up and unload kitchen gear at the end of a project as well. So during the days, cooks definitely have the option to kind of do whatever as long as they're ready for crews coming back to camp around whatever 3, 4, 5 o'clock. But it is such a hugely beneficial thing for us. I can't speak highly enough about how much cooks are revered on our overnight projects. Does anyone have any questions about our about the cook team role?
I would emphasize that you're not expected to do the project volunteering along with this role. Like you're not
Yes.
working an 8-hour day and then cooking for everyone. You're only responsible for the cooking.
Right. So it does, yeah. So that does involve, you know, being able to get up early enough and make the coffee and make the breakfast so that as everyone's crawling out of their tents, that stuff is ready. And then everyone goes off to actually do the work out in the field, and you can take a nap or like sit and read a book or go for a hike or something like that. Like we are not expecting our cook teams to put in like 12 or 16-hour days, but there is time very early in the morning and then, you know, cleaning up after dinner as well. So it's a long day with a long break in the middle, typically.
And Nathan, the other side of that coin is that, you know, tool managers, cooks, photographers, you can always go, you know, check out the project, enjoy the company of the other volunteers, see what they're doing, but you're not required to do like a dual role. And also, I will say that, you know, if you're a crew leader, a technical advisor, a tool manager on an overnight project, part of your role is also to check in with the, you know, the cook team or the tool manager and see what you can do to help them. For instance, when the tool manager shows up, we don't expect our tool manager to unload 100 tools for 100 volunteers. It's an effort from the leadership team. And we really want to emphasize that the leaders are part of that team, you know, supporting each other.
Okay, cool. I'm gonna keep going through and I'll stop asking how often people have questions because I'm gathering that we've answered some of the pressing ones and we'll have time at the end to cover others. So wanted to cover these two roles, technical advisor, and then we'll talk about project leader. These are positions in our leader team that are really do require like experience as a crew leader prior to doing, because as a technical advisor, you are helping to write up like the technical restoration plan and then relay that to the crew leaders. And so we want anyone who is doing that to have the experience of what it's like being a crew leader and relaying that to
I lost
your
you, Adam.
crew. Yeah, it's super helpful. So if
Am I the only one who just lost Adam?
No, I think he's off the scale.
Okay.
He's gone.
He's gone. But we'll wait.
He'll come back in a minute. So as Adam was saying, technical advisor and project leader, this year we're going to be a little bit more strict. We're, you know, all our rules are guidelines really. With those who would be a technical advisor or a project leader, because they really are kind of helping to lead the leadership team. However, if you have been a crew leader somewhere else, you've attended, you know, 100 WRV projects, and you just kind of want to skip over crew leader, do reach out to us because, you know, there's always an exception to the rule at WRV. Adam, do we have you back?
I am here. Yes,
Okay,
thank you.
I see,
for
yeah.
finding that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. I was just saying that the prerequisite for that one is important, but
Yeah.
back to you.
Right. Thank you for helping to fill that in. So, yeah, like I said, technical advisor really is more involved leading up to a project. So doing a lot of the planning, going to the site visits, creating technical notes, planning, and then leading that crew leader orientation that we talked about. And yeah, it's a lot of like stuff that is done prior to the actual project starting. A lot of the crew leader's role takes place on the project day, but technical advisors as well as project leaders will be very involved before the project day even comes. So yeah, we have technical advisors, we have project leaders, which, like I said, also requires prior leadership on WRV projects because the project leader is helping with planning, logistics, making sure we're meeting whatever restoration goals, and it can be a challenge to do that if you've not been on a leadership team with our projects before. So project leader serves as the kind of main point of contact between the staff and the leadership team. We don't have project leaders on every project. The staff member serves as this role if we do not have a project leader. But they are super helpful in really just making sure we have all our ducks in a row and that every volunteer knows what is going on and crew leaders know how to, relay information to their teams. So like I said, much like the TA or technical advisor, there's a big time commitment before the project day for the project leaders. So we do have a training that we don't necessarily do every year. It's kind of just as we have a group of people who are interested, we will host those. So we'll do that in conjunction with a project later in the spring if there's sufficient interest. Before I go into the skilled volunteer trainings, just touching base if there was anything anyone had a question about. Is my audio working now? I saw the comment that it was not. Okay, cool.
You're
I'm
good
glad
now.
you're not sitting there in silence. Just getting some fun delays. Okay. We'll keep going through. So skilled volunteer trainings, like I said, these differ from our leader roles. This one that first came up is also a leader role. So we have bilingual or Spanish crew leaders in ecological restoration. I put this under the skills list because we cannot help someone become fluent in Spanish, but if they already have that capacity, we are happy to have them utilize that skill on our projects. We also project photographer. I mentioned it before, it's considered a skilled volunteer role because you're not supervising a group of volunteers during the projects. You are just kind of floating around and helping capture the work as it's being done. So we call that a skilled role versus a leader role. Also, we have wilderness first aid or wilderness first responder and CPR trainings. So we do have one wilderness first aid scheduled at the end of March, I believe is already full with a wait list. Is that right, Emery?
Yep.
And was there a plan to schedule another one sometime this year as well?
I think we'll probably try to do another one in June or July, but I'm going to wait until our project calendar is out and try to pick a light weekend. But if you have wilderness first aid, wilderness first responder, or a wilderness EMT certification, and you would like to consider serving as you know, a backcountry or a front country first aid volunteer, go ahead and email us. You don't have to take any additional training if you are already certified. And I would highly recommend at minimum a WUFA if you spend time in the outdoors overnight, just for your own person.
And
Yeah.
Emery, for those who don't know, you want to define backcountry versus front country?
Ooh, I can do that real quick.
Sure, Adam.
Yeah, backcountry is just anything that's an hour or more away from emergency medical care. So that includes not only the drive, but also the hike out to whatever our site is. So any projects that have backcountry first aid volunteers, they will have a wilderness first responder or the wilderness EMT or something higher, so that they're prepared to help someone before we're just getting them off to a hospital or urgent care if it's needed. We have Crosscut Sawyer certifications. Typically, I'll have to check with Nate, but they are usually scheduled right around Memorial Day weekend and just after. So we've been doing 2 weekends of that. If you're not familiar, the crosscut is that picture in the middle with people that are holding like 10, 12 foot long saws. We will take those out into areas where chainsaws are not permitted to be able to clear out obstructions to the trails. So we usually have 1 or 2 weekends of that. We also will do a weekend of chainsaw certification. So for projects where chainsaws are allowed, we have chainsaw sawyers who will complete that training, and we have all of the gear, but people are welcome to use their own. So yeah, those are, when we say sawyer, that includes that whole group, but those are the 2 different training paths for that. We also because we work in a lot of areas that have been burned by wildfires, we will do trainings occasionally that are specific to post-fire restoration. That is a thing that will open up. You don't have to be a crew leader or a tool manager or anything to do those trainings, but it is beneficial if you want to be on those projects to just get more of that detail. And then also along with our trails, we occasionally do some advanced rock work, just utilizing large rocks to do everything from like, I don't know. I don't know a lot about it, to be honest. I'm not certified with the advanced rock work skills.
So if you're a trails person, advanced rocks work skills might be like building cribbed stairs, or using the come along and some of the grip hoists to learn how to move large rocks with mechanical advantage. And then also building like multi-tiered rock walls and kind of longer rock staircases. So just kind of getting into how to really move large rocks more efficiently and build more complex structures.
Yeah, and so that'll be later in the season. That's not currently scheduled, but we usually do that partway into the year as an additional skill to add to the tool set. This is my general overall, why become a leader with us? And then I want to make sure we've got time for questions. I'm also happy to stay on a few minutes past 7 if people have additional questions. But really is a very flexible time commitment to become a leader with us, and there are a lot of different options. So if you're like, hey, I want to maybe do like a project or 2 a year, you can just do that as a crew member. But if you're like, yeah, I might want to like do a couple and also like understand the behind the scenes a little bit and support people who are coming out on the projects, you could crew lead on one project, you could crew lead on a dozen projects in a given season. That is kind of up to you. We're not going to say you have to do X number of projects or you're not allowed to be a leader. But yeah, the more you do it, the more comfortable you get with it. Being a leader with us really does help us to be able to grow our community, to heal the land through these projects. We can't do these projects without volunteer leaders. So you're also building those technical skills. OSI is the Outdoor Stewardship Institute. Those certifications are recognized by other organizations like Volunteers for Outdoor Colorado, Roaring Fork Outdoor Volunteers, other organizations throughout the state. We've had people come to us who trained with VOC and had their OSI crew leader certification, so they did not need to redo it with us because a lot of it is similar. So it makes it easy to help out other similar organizations. Being a leader can also be a great way to get access to a popular project. We may have a project that, like, I think of like the Summit Lake planting that we do every summer. There are like 50 or 60 slots. It usually fills up within the first week that it is open, except for the crew leader spots. And I'm often like reaching out to people a couple months before to fill the crew leader roles because just some of them need more crew leaders, and it's harder for us to fill those spots since you need special training for it. Okay.
Adam,
We
I
have-
might throw in a plug there and reiterate your point on that. Becoming a qualified certified crew leader with WRV, whether you have the technical skill or not, you know how to manage volunteers. That's what you've been essentially trained for, the safety aspect. And it will give you carte blanche to some of these projects that are so hard to get into. That's one reason why I'm able to volunteer for restoration projects, which I don't know technically too much about still.
Yeah, thank you for adding that in. So this is, I wanted to have some time if there are any questions that came up during this or that were not answered in the info that we shared, definitely want people to feel like they can make an informed decision whether one of these trainings or positions makes sense for them or not. So yeah, you can use Ashley, I see your hand up. You can do a raised hand on there. Anyone else who has a question? Go ahead, Ashley.
I was just wondering if there is a
Hi,
chainsaw training.
Can't hear anything.
Oh, cut out for a second. Yeah, the chainsaw training, Ashley.
Yes. Is there a one for women?
We often will do, like, I know in the past we've had female Sawyer projects specifically, but I do believe that our chainsaw and crosscut ones are, regardless of gender, we want those to be available and accessible. So we often will do every year some affinity projects that might specifically be like a women's project, like we've done trail building ones, we've done Sawyer projects, but yeah, the trainings themselves we want to be as part of like making our inclusive community, accessible to whoever.
Yeah, that makes sense. I understand that. I didn't think of it, but now I understand. Thank you.
Yeah, and Ashley, I'm glad you brought that up because we have hosted some of the affinity projects, like especially in trails. Being a woman who actually used to lead trail crews, it can be a very different environment if you're female identifying. And the biggest struggle we have with like the chainsaw and crosscut trainings is the trainers and the people who evaluate are so hard to schedule, and it's so hard to get them that opportunity hasn't presented itself. But we're gonna mention it. So thanks for bringing it up.
Yeah. Okay, Nate, I saw your hand up.
Yeah, you mentioned a fire restoration skilled volunteer role or training. What does that even look like compared to the fire restoration projects we already do?
It basically is giving more context, so it would be maybe more focused on installing wattles or doing things that are specific to areas that have been burned. So it is not like, it's basically like if that is a vested interest that you have to do like the post-fire recovery work, it gives you more experience with the technical skills prior to getting out on the projects.
Okay.
Yeah, and
I
it's-
don't believe that is scheduled yet.
And they also the folks in my office have run those, so I've heard them talk about it a lot. It's a lot like how you would weave together certain techniques for erosion, regrowth, when you would decide, how you kind of analyze the hill or the slope to decide when are wattles needed and when can we just mulch. So it gets a little bit more into the background science aspect of it.
One of the things about fire recovery is that it's really important to be able to evaluate burn severity if you're involved at all in planning that project, but also in terms of just where do you put things on the site, what part needs recovery and what part can recover on its own.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for adding that in, John. In case you can't tell, John's done some of our post-fire projects as well. Yeah, any other Hunter, I see your hand up.
Can you just share both your emails again? Because I thought they were in the chat, but I don't see them.
Yeah, they were like right at the beginning. I'll put them here in the chat again. And then if you do
Sorry.
need to get in touch with any of our staff and you just go to the website and staff page, it's just our first name and then at WLRV.org. So it's kind of the same as our general inbox, but I'll put them right here.
And then just I mean, I know you already explained what a technical advisor is, but it's basically like a step above a crew lead if you have like the technical skills within like restoration or something, right? That's my understanding.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Hunter.